morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 556 of
456.
456, sorry, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, and it looks like it's a lovely day here at the Beaver Lodge. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Have no idea what kind of show it's going to be for you today because about 3 seconds before logging on, a computer said no and deleted all my show notes.
These things happen.
Rather than saving them as a draft, said, no, you can't have nice things. So, yeah, we'll be winging it a bit, going from memory and trying to bring up things. So it might be a bit more chaotic than usual, but hopefully with your patience, we'll still have a good show. Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today? Because right now I'm a little
Mental health, I think, is okay. Physical health is a little off. Shortly after the show yesterday, I started doing a couple things around the house, and then I'm like, oh, my head's starting to hurt. I'm just going to lie down for a few minutes. And then I had a migraine that lasted 6 or 7 hours. So my whole day was a complete write-off. I was supposed to go over to visit my parents and help them out with a few things, and it's like I could not get up off the couch. I didn't do an ASMR because there was no way I could sit in front of all these lights last night. It just, no, I was not. It was rough. So I'm feeling better than I was yesterday, but I'm still not. I'm at about 70%, I'd say. I'm about 70% of what I should be physically, but emotionally, not too bad. Actually, not too bad. I haven't taken out Lola yet because I was slow to wake up this morning. So we'll have to wrap this after about 60 minutes, I think, so I can get her out so she doesn't, start doing the happy dance of I got to pee and I'm going to do it in your house. She does. It's the last thing on earth she ever wants to do is disappoint daddy. So it's like she'll do everything she can to avoid it, So yeah. I don't want to put her through that.
Yeah, no, I'm slow to start as well. Since I've gotten away, being here at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge is the first time that my beaver and Sweetie and I have not been together because he went hiking this weekend in the Adirondacks with his dad,
right.
And I came to do the podcast. It's the first time we haven't been together since things got pretty hairy with the contractor, and then we had the car accident, and we talked about that at I think on Pubcast Day or the day after. No, on Pride Day here. I didn't realize how tired I was. I have not been able to stop just falling asleep. All hours of the day. Like I'm up for about 3-4 hours and I fall asleep and I'm up for I was exhausted.
Yeah, yesterday was a total write off for me. Like I
Yeah.
said, that was migraine related. It was and it was a bad one. It was I need silence, I need darkness, I need ice packs on my head. I tried to put your feet in hot water. That didn't work. So it was a rough one. It was a rough one for sure. But hey, you get through it, you move on. I hate losing a day like that. I hate losing a day, period. But losing a
Right.
day to feeling like crap. Like
Right.
I have other things to do. It's like I realize, okay, yeah, I don't have a job right now, so it's not like I'm missing work or anything, but I still have things to do.
Right. Right.
So,
Right. Sorry if everybody caught a weird sound on that. An Amber Alert had just come in, so
is
hopefully
that what
that.
that was? I
Yeah.
didn't get it
Okay.
yet.
The transfer through. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, kids and cubs. In the news, lots of stuff going on. The Liberal cabinet retreat is continuing. Today is day 3, the final day. Things are going to focus more on Canada's relationship with the United States today. And there'll be various people coming in to address members of cabinet, including the Canadian ambassador to the United States. But there will be many other people as well. And yesterday there were, as we talked about on the show, we didn't talk so much about the announcement about electric car batteries, but that was one big thing that was there. And then the second one, of course, uh, being, and now it just escaped my head. Oh, the temporary foreign workers adjustments to the temporary foreign workers program, which we had mentioned as well, were coming. Um, the first one of the two is that the government has announced a new 100% surtax will take effect on October 1st for all Chinese-made electric vehicles, which is a significant increase from the 6% tariff currently enforced.
It doesn't really have any teeth though, because we're not currently importing any Chinese electric vehicles.
Exactly.
You know what electric vehicles we're importing? Teslas.
Yep. Yep. So no, some of them which are made in China, but not enough of them to, right? And
Yes.
it's not a Chinese brand. So
Well, and they're
probably will
desperately
not.
trying to get into the North American market because their vehicles, they're quite good. They've got 1,000-kilometer battery range, the BVDs. I've been reading up about them. My Amber Alert just came in, and uh, they're offered up at like less than market prices here because the labor is so much cheaper there. And even though they're putting them on a cargo vessel and shipping them across the ocean to North America, it's still they can sell them here for $12,000-$13,000.
Yep, yeah, indeed. So, indeed, we are not um, bringing in EVs from China at the moment. It has happened in Europe, and it seems that according to the CEO of the Canadian auto manufacturers, whose last name is Kingston and his first name I can't remember because I had them in my show notes, who was on Power and Politics yesterday, stating that they are present in Europe and they've gained a pretty strong share of the market right away. He says that over here in Canada, it's more of a preemptive move, one to match what the United States is doing because they've already announced that, and like it or not, because of geography, our bread is buttered on the side of the United States. So to coordinate with them is probably a no-brainer. So government probably had to do this. It's probably the smartest move that we could make in this context. Um, but it's a preemptive move because, in some ways, we have spent so much in terms of laying the groundwork for Canada to become a player in this field.
Mhm.
It would kind of be nonsensical to say, okay, now we've spent $40 billion or so in order to be able to gain this foothold. Let's allow the product of another country that doesn't have the same environmental rules and doesn't have the same labor laws dump their excess product in ours before we can actually, enough time has happened to achieve the economies of scale from having put all this money in.
Right. Well, and I know one of the big concerns about bringing the Chinese cars here is, okay, it would undermine the existing electric infrastructure that's being built in North America amongst automobile manufacturers because they can offer it up at a much cheaper price. Then the other
Mm.
concern that a lot of people have is, well, they're just going to spy on everything we do. And I'm like, let me tell you something about new cars.
Yes.
They all do. They
Yep.
all spy on you. I'm not kidding. The newer vehicles have these safety features that have cameras on the driver and will tell you an alert when you're distracted because you're not looking at the road. It's recording you constantly, and this information is available. It gets sent to central servers by different manufacturers. They're all doing it. They're all spying on you at all times. It was actually a subplot line in a movie not too recently, or fairly recently, I should say, a Bill Burr film where they all lose their job because the rental car they were in, the camera was recording their conversation. They downloaded the conversation and put it on the air and said, "We can't have you working for us," and saying things like that. So it's like any new automobile is spying on you. That's all there is to it. So whether it's the Chinese or the Japanese or the Germans or the North Americans, they're all spying on you. Every single one. And like your smartphone, you want to live in a modern time, guess what? Your smartphone has either, what is it, the Googler or Siri, and they're listening at all times too.
Mm.
At all times. Everything
Indeed.
gets recorded, and all of that info usually gets dumped into AI so that they can learn more about us and develop their software better. I'm not being conspiratorial here. This is just simple. This is fact. This is fact.
Mhm. So yes, the security concerns with regard to data collection and whatnot is also something. I believe we had Global Affairs Minister Melanie Joly commenting on that part.
Mhm.
Um, so good move. Conservatives have been criticizing in the sense like, why didn't you go further talking about semiconductors and solar panels and all that type of stuff? And the federal government says, yeah, don't worry about it. We're on that. We took some time. We've consulted, done about 30 to 45 days of consultation. This would be International Trade Minister Mary Ng who said this. And we've got about another 30 to go at the request of the industry to make sure they got that right. But given that the United States kind of announced out of the blue at some point, hey, that we're going to do this. Well, we had to put the stuff on semiconductors aside for a couple of days to come up with this, and now we're getting back to that. So basically, conservatives coming out don't really have much to say about this. That's a negative because they probably would have done the same thing too. But yet
Mhm.
we don't have to. So you can't. And I mean, the conservatives line on almost everything. I remember from the Harper years was, well, we can't do anything before the United States does. Remember that for about climate change, for example. So it would be the same thing here. So they really can't complain about this. So they decided to complain about it not going fast enough because China, ooh, they're big and scary. So what about the semiconductors? What about this? Yeah, we're working on it. So um, that's kind of the big news there. Um, on the other side of it, the second bit of news with regard to the temporary foreign workers, as we mentioned yesterday, it looks like there'll be a cut. Uh, well, the cut was actually a little bigger than some people had expected, because I believe they had allowed certain industries to have a workforce. I think that was up to 30% of temporary foreign workers. And I believe in the article I was reading yesterday, they thought that the government would cut it back to 20. And it seems that the government went back and cut it to 10, actually.
Yes, and also, so if your geographic area that you reside in has an unemployment rate of 6% or higher, there are no temporary foreign workers allowed there.
Yeah, indeed.
Which means, guess what? Guess what, white people? You have to go and do those jobs now. So you don't get to complain because nobody's taking the job that you refuse to accept to begin with. Because we always know it's white people who complain about this the most.
Well, yes, except in this case, it's probably going to be a move for more Canadians who are more newly arrived and youth,
Mhm.
because youth unemployment has gone up significantly. Um, I believe that even though the overall rate in the nation is over somewhere around the 6% or something like that, for youth it can be 11, 13% depending on the category there. So um, basically, we had a situation of corporate greed where these that went on a little longer, where these a lot of industries, particularly low-wage industries, particularly service industries, were deciding that we would rather hire them because, well, they have fewer rights,
Hmm.
that were, can't demand better working conditions as much as everybody else can. Um, yeah, the federal government said, okay, you got an extra year or two on this, so be grateful. And now it's time for you to participate too. Of course, the usual suspects, like Canadian Federation of International Business. Yeah, I think International Business (CFIB) was out there going, "Oh my God, this is terrible! It will really hurt our employees." And I guess, well, yeah, of course, but
Hmm.
I was like, I'm just wondering, CFIB, because you usually take the conservative stance on things, have you consulted with the conservative parties on your stance? Because they keep on wanting to raise the boogeyman about immigration being too high. So I don't think you coordinated your media lines there. But just goes to prove that even among conservatives, there's some of them that's more, hey, wait a minute, like this, people, we need to defeat the liberals. Housing, which is a provincial thing, is all the fault of Trudeau. And colleges and universities and funding them, which is all the domain of the premiers, is all the fault of Trudeau. We have too many students and we have too many immigrants and okay, well, let's cut them. Hey, wait a minute, we won't be able to hire people for less. Well,
And pay them less money.
uh, pick a leg to dance on,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Look, no matter what the current government of Canada does, the opposition, because they are the opposition, will oppose every damn thing. Even when they say, we need you to do this. Okay, we did it. Not like that. Well, housing is a problem. Yeah, but that's a provincial issue. Well, you need to do something about it. Okay, we're doing something.
You
Don't
said
do
from
it
day
that
one
way.
you were going to do something about it 9 years ago, and you haven't fixed it. You only got around to identifying those 56 plots of land somewhere that are owned by the federal government on which you could build public houses. It's like, well, they didn't say 9 years ago that they were going to actually have to come in and build the housing. They built these funds that they hoped that people would take advantage of, but it seems that the provincial premiers decided, well, everybody everybody in any riding that votes for me that goes all NIMBY, I'm going to indulge them, and then I'm going to call them $500,000 houses, but really they're McMansions, and say, we have to build the affordable homes, but not before transferring $8.3 billion valued at 20 something of public wealth to my buddies, because that's really the priority when I said I have to build the homes, because I like my kneecaps and I want to keep them. Yeah. I made promises. I wrote some checks that my butt can't cash. So now you're all suffering, Ontario, because I have to find 75,000 other ways to make up that money. That's why you got booze in the stores 1 year early.
Well, that and of course there's this. Just my personal opinion that supervised consumption sites don't work, Doug Ford.
Yes.
But okay, but hang on a second. Personal opinion, supervised consumption sites don't work, but you can go and get liquored at a 7-Eleven, which is what? A supervised consumption site. Now, people make the argument, well, that's not the same as heroin or cocaine. No, it's not, but it's still a drug.
It's the same principle.
Site.
It's the same principle. If we kept the liquor stores open during COVID because we knew what could happen to alcoholics if there was sudden withdrawal. Hey, listen, I don't like seeing them. They make me feel icky. Is not a good reason to make a public policy decision of this kind. If cutting homeless shelters did not reduce the number of homeless people, and if cutting mental health facilities, mental health care in the 80s didn't result in less people suffering from mental health issues walking our street, what makes you think that cutting overdose prevention centers or safe consumption sites is going to reduce consumption, is going to reduce addicts in the street. And if these new heart centers don't even have the authority to have needle collection, if not clean needle distribution, what makes you think that you are going to have fewer needles in the park?
Yeah.
Think about it. So, yeah, just my opinion. Same thing as we we have something in the conservative circles, which will like lead us to where we're going with Alberta too at some point, where it seems that our conservative governments want to be inserting some moral person or a pastor between you and your doctor. So there's some type of middleman between you and every service. If you want to need a long-term care home, well, they're private now. If you need hip surgery, well, that's private now. If you need to put your kids in foster care, well, the foster care homes are private now. How long before we get private jails?
Well, God, I hope that never happens. But look here in Alberta, as I put in the headline earlier. I don't know where the hell we went. Alberta Premier reveals plans to transfer hospitals away from AHS. Next phase of restructuring includes removing Alberta Health Services as the operator of some hospitals and turning over to other administrators like Catholic healthcare provider Covenant Health. This is happening in Alberta right now as we speak. They are privatizing healthcare in Alberta, and they're handing it over to a religious healthcare provider, which is...
They will not be offering certain services.
You think? They will do everything to talk you out of using those services.
No, we're not doing anything to reduce access to abortion. No, not at all. We're just going to lease. We'll still own the hospitals and stuff like that, but we'll just lease their operation to organizations because more competition and fear, like she said that, fear, are good for the system. Competition and fear.
Yes, that's exactly what she said. Competition and fear is good for the system. I'm like, what?
Yep.
This is not good.
So, according to the article that Mr. Grizzly put up, and remind me, I need to get back to the temporary foreign worker changes because of where I was going, and then we went around. But that's okay. The conversation led it. But remind me not to forget that part, because sometimes I do that. I forget to get back to what I was talking about. But yeah, according to Lakeland Today by Brett McKay, another very, very good local journalism. Again, we're having a lot of this lately. At a Drayton Valley UCP Town Hall event, Alberta Premier revealed her plans to remove Alberta Health Services as the operator of some provincial hospitals and turn those facilities over to other administrators like Covenant Health, a Catholic healthcare provider. That should make everybody's spines shudder and all your sphincters snap shut.
Mm-hmm.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith shared the next phases of her government's restructuring of healthcare in Alberta on August 17th. The Alberta government is currently setting up a structure where the government retains ownership of facilities and leases them to AHS and is prepared to also take away their authority to operate hospitals as well, Smith said. Quote, because if our operator isn't performing the services we need them to, we're going to take the hospitals back, Smith said. The next phase is to see how many of those hospitals that AHS currently operates that we can retake ownership over. We can't do it for all of them. Smith said this strategy will improve the delivery of healthcare and help eliminate service disruptions in rural hospitals by introducing two incentives into the existing system: competition and fear. Quote, when you're dealing with a monopoly and they believe that they can deliver any type of care and there are no consequences, they're going to continue to deliver bad service, and competition is one option. That's why we're offering charter surgical centers and why we're offering Covenant, Smith said. But the other is the fear of having it taken away. That is going to be a very powerful competitive incentive for the managers to say, oh my goodness, if we continue to deliver terrible care in Drayton Valley, then somebody else is going to be chosen for the operator. Okay. Just so you know, AHS, as it is not supposed to be in competition. It's not a monopoly, it's a single organization delivering a service
Correct.
for the entire province. Because if I remember, conservatives don't like to duplicate bureaucracy.
Hmm.
So if we had an AHS and I don't know, uh, SAHS and an NAHS and a WAHS and an EA and a CA for Central, Eastern, Northern whatnot AHS, or we had AHS2 and AHS3 in every jurisdiction competing with each other, you would have 3 times the bureaucracy. And conservatives are allergic to that. It makes them break out into hives. Built in redundancy from the state makes them break out into hives.
Well, this let me put this on the screen and read it to you. This is Covenant Health, which is taking over hospitals from the AHS in Alberta. Covenant Health operates hospitals, clinics, and employs a large network of healthcare providers. Their health ethics guide explicitly states that abortion is not permitted.
Mhm.
So this is how they take away a woman's right to make a choice over their bodily autonomy.
Yep, don't need to pass a law.
No.
Just outsource who your healthcare provider is to someone who says we won't do it.
Yeah. So there's no law passed. Oh, you can still get it. Where? Private clinic? Can you afford that? Probably not. The province won't pay for a private clinic. They'll pay for a private hospital until they stop paying for private hospitals. See, this is how they slowly bring it in, right? First,
Mhm.
they kill the public system. They parachute in their private for-profit friends who own healthcare providers.
They tell you you'll pay it for it with your health card, not your credit card. But then
Correct.
there's certain ancillary services. Oh, would you like an extra fluffier pillow? Oh, there you go. And then you get your bill. Oh, that was $75 extra.
Wait, what? Huh? Bill? I didn't take an ambulance here. Oh, no, it's for the extra pillow and the extra. They will. This is how it starts. It starts incrementally. They're not going to switch it overnight. They can't do that because it wouldn't. The pushback on that would be insane. So they'll
You
do
want
it little
to?
by little, bit by bit, in small incremental amounts until you're paying every time you go. And they
Yeah,
have completely destroyed the public system.
yeah. And then then the provincial government says, oh yeah, we don't pay for that anymore.
Yeah.
You're fully dependent on it.
Well, and
So
cataract surgery in the province of Ontario is being sent out to private clinics that charge triple the amount that the public system
yep. And what's
charges.
happening? Yeah, and what's happening there is when you these things that she's called chartered care, which is really private care. What they do is they pick and choose. They do triage to pick and choose the easiest cases because they get paid bonus money for the number of bonus money anyway, as we saw here in Ontario. They're getting paid more to do the service because apparently we're funding the purchase of the equipment as well and not just the service, establishing business. So they do that, and then what happens is we have situations because the doctors are allowed to work in both systems simultaneously. Well, then they're deciding, well, I was providing 5 days of care a week here, but now I'm only going to provide 2 days of care a week here and 3 there. So it's not the number of physicians now; it's the number of available hours. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they created a system where a surgeon, for example, can say, you know what, I'm now only performing surgeries 2 days a week at the hospital. I will be performing surgeries 3 days a week at the private clinic with which I'm now a member. We will triage and take all the easiest cases so I can crank them out there. And then the toughest, more complex cases are going to be left to the public system where I'm only working 2 days a week now instead of 5. So you'll have to wait just a little longer for that to get your assessment for your complex case.
Yeah.
And while all the people that have more minor cases are very happy with the care that they're getting, that creates a little fewer people in the general public to be able to stand by your side and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not right, because nobody actually understands how bad it is until it actually happens to them or they're in the waiting room for 17 hours with someone they love. Then But it has to happen to enough people one at a time before there's that groundswell. And by the time that happens, well, what do you know? There's no more public system. That's the plan. Lorian Hardcastle, associate professor in the Faculty of Law at the Cummings School of Medicine at the University of Calgary, said changing hospital administrators would come with substantial investments of time and money, and that it doesn't address the key issues within the healthcare system which cause temporary closures. Quote, it seems to be more of what we've already seen, which is change for the sake of change and not change with a view to improving access or improving quality. When Danielle Smith says that this will help, she has no way of knowing that, actually. AHS has been running these facilities for a long time and has that expertise. For Covenant to take over those facilities, it's going to take time, it's going to take money, and it's not clear what the payoff is. There may be some providers who aren't interested in continuing to work at a facility if Covenant takes it over, and so it's not clear that this is going to help recruitment and retention, and it might make it worse. Hardcastle said the claim that Covenant Health would be better suited to run rural hospitals is unfounded, and the Premier needs to provide a rationale for why changing operators would have an effect on the number of rural doctors in a community or their availability to work. Quote, that's just something that she's made up as a theory, and there's no factual support for that. The fact that Covenant hasn't had any ER closures in facilities they run doesn't mean they wouldn't have closures if they ran the same facilities that AHS runs. Public notices from Covenant Health show there have been repeated temporary emergency department closures at its hospitals in Bonnyville and Killam due to staffing shortages. Transferring hospitals to a faith-based operator would also create issues around access to forms of care the facility would not permit to be performed in its facilities, Hardcastle said. Covenant does not allow staff to provide emergency contraceptives, abortion, medical assistance in dying, or other medical procedures. Dr. Luann Metz, Alberta NDP health critic, said the loss of these services in hospitals would create major challenges in rural Alberta. Quote, it will be devastating for these communities if they lose access to a whole avenue of healthcare that is provided to other Albertans, and that may be reproductive healthcare as well as medical assistance in dying, which Covenant also does not support, she said. Metz said the province's ongoing healthcare changes have resulted in budget cuts for AHS that impacts the services it needs to provide, while more money is going to restructuring and consultants. The government are the ones, quote, dictating what AHS can do. They're putting all the blame on AHS when in fact they're the ones pulling the puppet strings, she said. Talk of changing hospital operators risks adding another layer of instability that would make attracting doctors and nurses more difficult and indicates plans for further privatization of the public healthcare system, Metz said. Quote, I really think that this part of our move towards privatization I really think that this is a part of our move towards privatization. I don't think it's really just a story about Covenant versus AHS. It's a way of introducing the concept of bringing in other providers, she said. Metz also challenged the efficacy of existing private care initiatives in Alberta. Quote, when Smith talks about chartered surgical facilities, they've not helped. We've seen the numbers months ago showing that we're not doing more surgeries, and the whole result of this is going to make rural healthcare worse because it's the most challenging kind of healthcare to provide. A spokesperson for the Office of the Minister of Health said in an email that the work to refocus Alberta's healthcare system includes transitioning Alberta Health Services over time to deliver only acute care services. Quote, both Alberta Health Services and Covenant Health will continue to play key roles in healthcare service delivery, providing acute care and continuing care services to Albertans. Alberta's government is committing to ensuring key health partnerships continue providing Albertans with the best care possible, and that is bullshit.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't need to be so blunt, but yeah, that one is total bullshit.
Well, the healthcare system in Alberta is on the brink of collapse. It's as simple as that. And what Danielle Smith and the UCP have done to Albertans is criminal. It's criminal. In my mind, it's criminal. Is it actually technically defined as criminal activity? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the law well enough to make that statement that it definitely is. But, when you've got people in the ER waiting for 12 hours and longer, people are assigned beds in ERs for days at a time before being moved up to an actual bed in the hospital somewhere. ERs in rural areas are closed on the weekends due to lack of doctors. The population is growing while the number of doctors shrink. Everything that she is doing and has done is detrimental to the health and welfare of everyone living in the province. And guess what? She doesn't care. Somebody's going to get rich.
Not at all. Not at
Doesn't
all.
care.
Nope, nope, nope. So again, Covenant House, right? Now think about what she did to trans kids.
Yes.
And then think about what she did to the families of trans kids who are in favor of gender affirming care for their child.
Yeah.
She keeps on inserting a morality police between you and your right to access health care.
Well, I have a clip here from the breakdown, and I want to share this clip.
Yep.
Because I think it's important. Because, well, our buddy, he's really good at this.
He really is.
and I enjoy when he goes on the I don't want to use the word attack but well, he speaks the truth. So let's just have a look at our buddy Nate. It helps if I actually share the screen before I hit play.
The reality is Danielle Smith has taken a healthcare system that was the envy of the world because it was an integrated system that reduced barriers. If somebody needed multiple services within the AHS behemoth, then it was easier for them to access those services because they were all in effect under one roof. Now, of course, no system is perfect, and of course, there are always problems and inefficiencies, and those can be addressed. But the way that Danielle Smith has chosen to address those problems is to say, well, hey, what if I broke healthcare up into a bunch of different pieces? What would be the effect of that? Well, we're going to take a look tonight in this segment at what has some of the effect of that been. And the truth is, the effect has been really bad. Because if we take a look at just the last week, we're talking about 1 week in emergency rooms. We pulled this off the interwebs today before the show. How many emergency rooms have been closed in the last week in the province of Alberta? Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 emergency rooms in the last week. Now that's just emergency rooms. That's just emergency departments. If you want to see how disrupted the healthcare system actually is right now, 2 years after Danielle Smith said she would fix it in 90 days, there's another website that you can go to that shows you all of the areas in Alberta that are currently dealing with disruptions. Now, this is current. This is as of today. And it's really small font on our screen here because there are literally dozens of cities, towns that are having their healthcare currently disrupted. We've got Barrhead, Beaver Lodge, Boyle, Consort, Drumheller, Edmonton, Fairview, Grimshaw, Hanna, Hardisty, High Level, Lacrate, Lac La Biche, Manning, Peace River, Ponoka, Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House, Slave Lake, Smoky Lake, St. Paul, Stettler, Sundre, Swan Hills, 3 Hills, 2 Hills, all the hills, Wabaska, Wainwright, Westlock, and Whitecourt.
Indeed, I'm glad you showed that because that's exactly where I was going with my notes. If you haven't watched this edition of Alberta Roundup from the breakdown, you really do.
Should, yeah.
From the DMs, from the paramedics that night, he received a message. For fuck's sakes, we are staffed just over 50% tonight. This just has to stop. We're getting killed as well as patients, and no one in government cares. EMS leadership is informing the hospitals now that EMS will be just dropping patients off at triage tonight. Dump and go? How's that the best for anyone? Now, this is really interesting because the rules used to be that if you came in with EMS had to wait with you once they brought you to the hospital until you were
Right.
taken in.
Correct.
And then it says,
That
well,
means emergency medical support staff are not able to take care of other people because they can't just leave you in the hospital. They have to make sure you get handed off, right?
Right. So the government then decided, well, gee, that makes us look bad. So why don't you not stay with them and then go out and take more calls? So that way, when people call, they won't notice that it's bad over there because the ambulance will still keep coming.
Yes.
It's just that when you get there. So, and if you should happen to be crashing while you're waiting, then and nobody notices you, then well, I guess, right? That's just the way the apple crumbles.
Well, here's more from the breakdown. I'll show you this in a sec. She says lots of people are asking what Danielle Smith's personal vision for healthcare is. She spelled it out not long ago. She doesn't want to just create private facilities. She wants to convert existing public facilities into private facilities. And here's a clip of her saying exactly that. And this is something she's actually doing right now, as evidenced by what we've been talking about for the last few minutes. Now check this video out. This is from May 2023, I believe.
What needs to occur is that any hospital needs to be able to contract directly so that they can get their funds directly and get outside of this structure that we have where it's sort of trickle down. Whatever finally makes it to the front line, whatever decisions will finally allow you to have, will let you have. We already have a mechanism to set up private surgical centers. So imagine if High River Hospital, which does most of the hernia operations, by the way, in Southern Alberta, what if they said, you know what, we don't need to be under the umbrella of Alberta Health Services. We'd like to charter directly with Alberta Health Insurance and get our money directly. And you give a global budget to pay for what you would expect the emergency room to be on a traditional basis, but then they get paid based on activity. If they're able to do 1,000 hernias, they get paid on a per patient treatment for 1,000 hernias. If they're able to change their operations so they can do 2,000 hernia operations, then you allow the funding to follow through. None of these things would be outside the realm of what is currently possible under the Canada Health Act.
Can we stop electing stupid people who are actively trying to harm us, please? Please? Am I asking too much here?
Jeez. Other things
See,
that they know.
the way she does it, like she's got good media training. Right? Imagine if.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
What if she usually does that? What if and looks up to the sky when you know she's about to spin a yarn and deliver you a hurricane of bullshit.
Yep, indeed. Now remember, Danielle Smith came into office saying that she would fix healthcare in 90 days.
It's been 2 years.
Yeah. And they just announced, for example, that orthopedic surgeries are further delayed until September 30th, which is about, well, actually, they started in July saying that they were going to put them back. And now they're back till September 30th, which is about 90 days.
Yeah.
The same. Now, in order to deflect from all the criticism, the Smith government keeps on bragging about a net increase of 332 physicians in the last year. But as Nate pointed out during the show, if we look between 2019 and 2023, 2,471 physicians exited practice in Alberta. So when we keep on saying that the wonderful thing about conservative politicians is that they could decide when history begins, look at in the last year, we've attracted 332 physicians. We're getting all the physicians. All the physicians want to come to Alberta. What's that? Over the last 14 years before, we lost 2,000 more than we brought in last year. Yeah, let's not talk that we're still at net minus 2,100. All of you who remember the good old days before 2019. Over the 5 years or so, and then let's not forget stuff like, for example, given that the rate of inflation compounded since 2010 has been 38.9% in Alberta, but the fee that the province allows physicians to bill for a visit has only increased 8.9% since then. So if you're wondering where all the doctors went, well, their fees the amount of money they bring in kind of decreased by 30% since 2010.
Yeah.
Because inflation. And then the provincial said, oh, no, we don't need to compensate you for that in any way because we don't really need healthcare physicians.
Okay. Don't worry about it. You're fine.
Our population that's booming.
Growing rapidly. No, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
No, we don't need that. So and they're not on the show as well. Just to give you a little taste, they're not doing that great on education as well. So I don't know what it is that they're doing to the Alberta Advantage, but according to Nate, when we're talking about education. 24 of the school district divisions will have fewer teachers. Greater than 250 teacher positions will be cut. One board is cutting greater than 15% of its teaching staff, despite an expectation of 26,000 additional students this year.
Okay.
The government of Alberta ranks dead last in Canada in money spent annually per student on education. So if you're in Ontario, you get spent dead last in healthcare. If you live in Alberta, you get spent dead last in education. They spend about $11,601 per student. National average is $13,332. Quebec spends the most, $15,116. Then Manitoba, $14,291. So when you hear Albertans complaining about equalization, why does Quebec have all the money? Because Quebec's actually spending the money on people. Just saying. The quote from Nate Pike: the UCP actually dismantled all of the apparatus that required school boards to report how many kids they had in classrooms. So if you want to find out if your classrooms are overcrowded, well, you can't get an actual complete picture. But according to the Alberta Teachers Association, class sizes for 2024, if you're kindergarten to grade 3, a recommended class size is 17, but your kids are probably in a class of 20 to 25. If your kid is in grade 4 to grade 6, the recommended class size is 23, but they're probably in a class that has 25 to 30. If your child is in grade 7 to grade 9, the class size recommended is 25, but your kid is probably in a class that contains 30 to 35. And if they're in grade 10 to grade 12, the university preparatory years, or trade school preparatory years, or college preparatory years, class recommended size is 27, and they're probably in a class that has 35 to 40 plus. That's Danielle Smith too.
And then she said, look at the surplus we have. Okay, let me say this for the umpteenth time. If you are a government in power and you have a surplus at the end of the year, you have failed to do your job. There should not be money left over in the budget. Each year, you should break even at zero. There's no surplus. If there's a surplus, you're not spending the money on the people in your province that it's supposed to be spent on. You've failed. Look at the money we saved. Who suffered for that? Oh, I know. The poor, the working class, the single mothers, the recent immigrants in many cases, not in every case, but in many cases, the temporary foreign workers, students, the unemployed, those who are incapable of working. Those are who suffered for those savings. And those are the ones who will always suffer for those savings, because the ones who have so much don't give a shit. It's simply how it is. So, as I said at the top of the show in the description, Alberta, it's your turn to start pushing back, and pushing back hard. Because if you don't, you are going to lose so much. You've already lost a hell of a lot. And if you don't start pushing back, and pushing back hard right now, as of this moment, it's done. It's over. She will destroy what is left of your healthcare in Alberta. She's already destroyed it to a certain degree. She's going to privatize the rest of it by simply handing it over to them. And as for your education system, well, we need more tradespeople, and they won't up the immigration numbers because we have no place to house these temporary foreign workers. So we'll just create a program like Doug Ford did, where we can provide labor to contractors for apprentice programs at 16 years of age. And because it's an apprentice program, the government of Alberta will fund it. So that means the private contractors will get free labor. Do I have to do the paint by numbers for you here, folks? This is what is happening. I have something here I also want to share with you, too. This is from Andrew Longhurst, at @A_Longhurst on the Twitter. Don't know who this person is, but he says, a large U.S. healthcare investment advisory firm is putting together a prospectus for its clients, investors, about potential large-scale for-profit healthcare delivery opportunities in Western Canada. I can't share where this intel comes from, but it's credible. I'm worried. And of course, that's related to the video we just showed of Danielle Smith at freedomtalk.ca. Danielle Smith lays out her detailed plan to sell off any of the 100 hospitals that are part of her public healthcare system.
Yep.
It's happening in real time, folks. I'm not being
Yep.
alarmist. The alarm bell has been ringing for a
Yep.
long time.
Yep.
And I think people just got used to the ringing alarm bell that you just sort of tune it out. You can't tune it out anymore.
Yep.
You can't. And remember, our friend Nate works in healthcare.
Yep. It's paramedic. Yep.
He witnesses it firsthand.
Indeed. Indeed. All right. For those, because I thought I should do this when it after it came in, and I didn't. But the Amber Alert that came in has been issued for a 5-year-old child missing from Brossard on Montreal's South Shore. Shi Gao Getty is described as 1 meter 1 or 3 feet 6 inches and 19 kilograms or 41 pounds. He has brown hair, brown eyes, and was last seen wearing a blue T-shirt. He may be with a suspect named Yang. Oh, I cannot pronounce that. Ryuxu, Ruixue, who is 65. Police are asking the public to look out for a white 2024 Tesla 3 with Ontario number plate GVMK 536. That's GVMK 536. Anyone with information is asked to call 911. There you go. And if you look at CTV News, Amber Alert, child missing from Montreal South Shore, they actually have an image from the Sûreté du Québec of the child and the suspect as well. As we know, most kids that get kidnapped are usually snatched by someone they know and someone they're related to. So that might be a situation here if they already have, they suspect that they know who it is and have pictures. In this case, I would show them on my screen, but I'm not at the the Ottawa Beaver Lodge there. So there, sorry, at the Kingston Beaver Lodge, I should say. I am at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge. I don't even know where I am. That's how tad this beaver is. Now back to the immigration stuff that I said I wanted to get back to because I remembered. The immigration minister says that the upcoming changes to permanent resident levels are not cosmetic but significant. This is also from CTV. Quote, Immigration Minister Mark Miller says the federal government is looking at a number of options to reevaluate permanent resident levels in Canada and says any upcoming changes will not be cosmetic but significant. Quote, now it's time to take a look at them and put real options on the table for the Prime Minister and for other cabinet ministers to look at, and not cosmetic changes simply to deal with public opinion. Real significant change, Miller said in an interview on Monday with CTV News chief political correspondent Vashi Kapelos. Miller made the comments while attending the Liberal cabinet retreat that is underway until Tuesday in Halifax. As many Canadians face housing and affordability concerns, the federal government has faced ongoing pressure to address the number of temporary and permanent residents coming to Canada. On Monday, the federal government announced stricter rules to reduce the low-wage stream of temporary foreign workers after a surge in recent years to address the post-COVID labor shortage at the request of our premiers. My editorial addition here. But Premier Justin Trudeau also signaled more immigration changes will come this fall for permanent residents. A possible reduction in permanent resident levels could mark a major policy reversal for the Trudeau government. And that's something that you're going to see a lot in the press. It's going to be the biggest policy U-turn of this government. It's not a policy reversal.
No.
Policy reversal is when you do something and you realize, oops, this didn't have, or this had unintended consequences or something, like, for example, the decriminalization project in British Columbia. They discovered that it led to certain unintended consequences. Oops, we need to reverse on this in order to make the policy more sound. That's one thing. This is, we had a shortage, so we changed rules to respond to the demands of the provincial governments. And now we no longer have a shortage, so we are changing the rules to respond to the demands of the provincial governments. This is not a policy U-turn. This is when conditions change, we change, which is literally peace, order, and good governance.
Mm-hmm.
It's responding to changing situations is not a policy U-turn. It's, what's that word that Pierre likes to use for common sense? Actual
common sense is not that common, but it's not that common.
No, it's not, because if it was, everybody would have it. My Aunt Carol used to say that to me all the time growing up. Common sense were common. Everyone would have it. So we're looking at various streams to make sure that as we move forward, Canada remains a place that is positive in its support for immigration, but also responsible in the way we integrate and make sure there's pathways to success for everyone who comes to Canada, Trudeau told reporters in Halifax on Monday. Last November, the federal government announced that it was freezing permanent resident targets over the next 3 years to ensure sustainability. There's an aim to bring in 485,000 permanent residents in 2024 and 500,000 both in 2025 and 2026. Those projected numbers are a more than 50% increase from the 296,000 permanent residents we welcomed in 2016. When pressed by Capellos on what significant changes to permanent residence levels mean, Miller said all options are on the table. Quote, there will be considerations about whether we reduced what type of immigration that we are supporting. 60% of our immigration is economically driven. That is probably unprecedented with countries that we compare ourselves to, Miller told Capellos. But we have to see if we've done this in the right way and if that growth merits to continue, needs to be paused or even reduced. Asked whether he takes accountability as minister for an overheated immigration system, Miller said every minister needs to take responsibility for the files they're in. I think that's the responsibility I have, and in the next year, I think Canadians expect us to continue to take aggressive actions where they think it makes sense for the economy in their lives. Back in January, Miller announced a 2-year cap on the number of permits for international students. This year, the government will approve about 360,000 undergraduate study permits, a 35% reduction from the nearly 560,000 issued in 2023. The Bank of Canada Economic Progress Report from last December acknowledged strong immigration numbers since 2022 have helped boost Canada's workforce, so we needed it, but the bigger issue is that Canada's housing supply has not kept pace with recent increases in immigration, which the government is trying to address on the supply side because it got tired of waiting for the provinces to do it. Statistics Canada said the country's population in 2023 grew faster than it has at any time since the 1950s due to a sharp rise in temporary residents. Canada's population surpassed 41 million people in the first quarter of 2024 to reach 41,012,563 on April 1st, 2024. There you go. Probably will be some changes in the numbers. Most studies have been showing that the base immigration numbers, permanent residents and that type of stuff, that those numbers were pretty much well adjusted all the way along for what we needed. Things got really out of line is with these other requests, which again, primarily from the premiers. All right. So not so much policy U-turn or a flip-flop or, oh my God, the government made a big mistake and now it needs to like pull the wheel hard to the right in order to fix it. Now it's just things change. So
things change.
Things change. Welcome to
me,
government.
I got to show you this because you talked about this a little bit earlier, but you did quote it. But I actually have the quote here. This is from City View. This is Danielle Smith. You did the highlighted part you talked about before, but I'll read the entire thing. Because if our operator isn't performing the services we need them to, we're going to take the hospital back, Smith said. The next phase is to see how many of those hospitals that AHS currently operates that we can retake ownership over. We can't do it for all of them. Smith said this strategy will improve the delivery of healthcare and help eliminate service disruptions in rural hospitals by introducing two incentives into the existing system: competition and fear. She thinks it's the Hunger Games or something.
Yep. Hey, hospitals that are run by AHS, if you can't do the job fast enough, maybe there's another hospital that can. Let's provide you some incentive. Let's threaten removing more money from you, and maybe that will get you to act faster. Because, yes, I mean, listen, industries invest in places that are safe, stable, and if they have to bring employees in, employees can get health care, can have their children taken care of if they're of childcare age, and can get their children properly educated with a quality education if they're school age. Alberta is squandering on all three.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what type is a 0% provincial tax rate is only going to go so far.
They've got to introduce a provincial tax at some point in time because as we do slowly migrate away from oil for automobiles.
We'll still have them for plastics and other stuff. That's all.
Exactly. Oil's not ever going to disappear completely because hospitals, half the stuff in a hospital is made out of petroleum products. Right. So that is not going to disappear anytime soon. But we are migrating away from the use of oil or fossil fuels or non-renewable energy sources, whichever you want to call it, in automobiles. So cars, trucks, buses, motorcycles, scooters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is changing, and it's changing quicker than I thought it would, to be honest with you. Much quicker, because I remember thinking years ago, well, I like the idea of electric car, but there's not enough places to charge. Well, that's changed awful quickly. Every time I turn around, I see another charging station going up somewhere. This is a good thing. If you have as many charging stations as you have gasoline providers or service stations or whatever you want to call them, you can nip that problem in the bud pretty quickly. And if you go along both the 20, the 40, the 401, the 417, well, not the 417, sorry, but if you go along those highways, you'll see that they have public rest stops. Now in Quebec, they're different than Ontario. Ontario, they're en route and they are staffed with several fast food locations and a corner store, washroom facilities, et cetera, and now they all have charging. In Quebec, they have like a province of Quebec issued charging station, and they're not Tesla chargers, but you can charge your Tesla there. In Ontario, they're doing the same thing. They're putting in, some of them have Tesla charging stations, some of them have just Rio Tinto stations, and some of them have province of Ontario stations. So you're seeing that transition slowly take place, only, I say slowly, but it's much quicker than I ever thought it would be. Honestly, 20 years ago, I did not think it would be as dominant as it is today. And as more and more people switch to electric vehicles, and that's not changing, it's going to be happening because they're starting to phase out internal combustion engines.
Right. Yeah, I think we're doing that by 2035. I think it is 100% of all new sales will
Have to be electric.
Electric.
Electric or alternative source.
Yeah, exactly. And
it could be hydrogen.
Exactly. And then that Kingston guy from the president of Canadian auto manufacturers was stating on Power and Politics that requires us from 2025 to 2035 every year installing about 40,000 charging stations per year. And so far, there's no plan for that.
Yeah, and that's an issue, right? That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. We will need it. So somebody's got to get on that. Here with the other thing. So you have to understand here that we have the conservatives who are basically they complain, right? But they're not really offering solutions, right? They point to the problem. They say, you got Pierre Poilievre all the time going, oh, well, this is a big problem and you got to blame Trudeau. Sometimes he says he will fix it. Other times he doesn't. He just points to a problem and says it's bad, and that's it. So you got that party, and of course, Melissa Lantsman let us know, of course, that we're not allowed to know what it is that they've got planned for us. We've got to wait to the election. But Pierre doesn't very rarely promises to fix it, and if he is promising to fix it, he most certainly does not say how it is that he is going to go about it.
No.
So you can take that for what it's worth. But over here on the federal government side, where a lot of people are trying to portray it as tired and old and not responsive and all that kind of stuff, well, you've got the solution here is like, okay, listen, we are going to make the adjustments to the temporary foreign worker program. We're going to consider some adjustments to the permanent residence program. And we are going to be, because housing is an issue, well, we have this whole housing project thing going in, and we got Sean Fraser going across the country doing that. We actually dedicated a minister to housing. We're creating this program so that cities can access funding bypassing the provincial governments, and then you got a couple of provincial governments that are going, well, not like that. The money has to go through us. Don't see why, but they say it does. And then we have the feds that announced that they identified 56 government properties for conversion to affordable housing. So according to iPolitics, they've added 56 properties to new public lands bank of locations that are suitable for long-term leases so developers can build housing and in order to boost the supply of homes. Sean Fraser made the announcement Sunday in Halifax, just ahead of the cabinet retreat. Quote, making public lands available for home construction is going to reduce the cost of construction and in turn reduce the cost of living. Former military bases, Canada Post sites, and federal office buildings are among the properties currently included in the public lands bank, many of which were previously set aside for sale as they are no longer in use. The new plan is to offer most of them for long-term lease rather than a one-time sale to keep the lands in public hands. Very, very, very smart. And ensure housing built on them remains affordable. The current list includes properties in 28 municipalities in 7 provinces, but will grow over time through an ongoing review of underused or vacant federal land and buildings. 5 properties first identified in the April budget are now moving into the development phase, with the government asking developers for expressions of interest or requests for proposals. 4 of them are on former military bases in Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, and Ottawa, while the 5th is the site of a former National Film Board building in Montreal. Conservative housing critic Scott Aitchison dismissed the latest plan as a repeat of something the Liberals have been promising to do since 2015. No. The Tories pointed out both the 2015 Liberal platform and the 2017 federal budget promised an inventory of public lands to make more properties available for affordable housing. It took 9 years after he promised to build homes on federal land. No, he didn't promise to build homes on federal land. He just promised to identify lands on which homes can be built.
Correct. There's a difference.
Yes. To actually identify the few parcels of land he would build on. In a video statement shared to social media, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took a shot at Pierre Poilievre over the use of federal land, saying, quote, the Conservative Party leader wants to sell it all off to make a quick buck. That does nothing for you. The Conservative housing plan involves the sale of 15% of all federal buildings to be turned into homes. Fraser said construction on housing on the first 5 properties could begin in the first half of 2025. Housing will be a key issue at the cabinet retreat, of course, as continues grapple with the high costs and limited availability. So we do have the federal government actually coming up with solutions both for the demand and the supply side. And meanwhile, we have Pierre Poilievre complaining, this is a problem, but not promising to fix it and not showing us any solutions. And then the party poo-pooing on every single move that is made by people that are actually trying stuff to address and solve the problem. So, which wolf do you want to feed? Right? So you may not see, this is the thing, is you may not like the Liberals, you may not like the Prime Minister personally, but if you step back and you say, like, this is a problem, who's actually working on the problem? One person keeps on saying, there's a problem, it's their fault, and pointing you to who you should blame and hate for the problem existing. And then there's another team that seems to say, yeah, that is a problem.
Yes.
Let's do something about it. How about we try this? Now, there's no guarantee that what they're going to try is going to work. But as opposed to the Danielle Smith version of what if we try this?
What if? What if?
This one is, okay, well, let's go talk to people, know a little bit about it. And okay, they say this. Well, how about we try this?
Mm-hmm.
Things that we try don't come with a guarantee of success. But, usually if you base it on something other than what you've just decided to pull out of your ass today,
Hmm.
you're going to get some good stuff out of it
Here's
that you can build on.
got an interesting comment here. I just came across my feed in regards to Alberta Premier saying competition and fear, incentives to improve service. This is from Annie Girl 1138 on the Twitter. The only people living in fear are Albertans who can't get in to see an oncologist before they die of cancer.
Hmm?
Yeah, no kidding.
We've been mentioning that on the show.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
They've got no solutions for that.
None. Zero.
Why they're focused on giving money to like sports arenas and
What,
booze.
$500 million?
Yes, and increasing gambling, because those are things that they can point to. We're raising the speed limit by 10 kilometers an hour, because those are things they can control.
I don't know. I
No
don't know.
solutions for the things they can't.
Is anybody able to tell us, because I don't have time to look it up, but is anybody able to tell us the structure for casinos in Alberta? Because it's all treaty territory. So an Indigenous band is allowed to set up a casino basically anywhere because it's all their land. And they're all over Calgary. They're all in the foothills. They're everywhere you go, there's a casino. I don't know if any of that money goes back to the province or not. I don't know. I have no idea. Like in Quebec and Ontario, they're run by the provinces. But in Alberta, they're independently owned and operated by a band. So I don't know how that works. So, by expanding casinos, I'm like, unless the province is starting to get into the business of operating casinos in Alberta, and again, I don't know that they are, but if somebody wants to inform me, I just don't. I've got a million other things I'm trying to curate at the moment here. So,
Yeah.
That would be. I'm curious to know if there's any tax revenue from that somehow. I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Could be wrong. There could be a cost sharing agreement of some kind, but
Probably,
I don't think that there would be
possibly.
any reason to need to have one.
No.
Because it is Indigenous land. See that we have a new kid here. Kit Tom Trask. Welcome.
Hey, welcome, Tom.
Welcome to the Beaver Lodge, and thank you, Kit Elaine, for telling Tom about us. What I mentioned at the beginning of the show with regard to corporate greed and the temporary foreign worker program, this was Minister Randy Boissonneau, who is the Minister of Employment at the moment, says there will be exceptions for seasonal and non-seasonal jobs in agriculture, food processing, fish processing, as well as construction and healthcare when it comes to that, because those are the industries where we really need people the most. I mean, if we're going to be working on changing the supply side for housing, then we need people to build the houses. Just kind of makes sense. There's not enough of us. So it would be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot saying that we're going to make adjustments to the temporary foreign worker programs, and we're going to start with the places where we actually do need the bodies, as opposed to the places where we don't need the bodies, like somewhere selling some products at a corner store, for example, which is a job that a university or a college student or somebody that's going to trade school could do on the side, or somebody who is new to Canada and is looking to establish themselves here and doesn't need to fight against temporary foreign workers. Can you imagine if you come to Canada and you're looking to build a new life and it's like, oh, by the way, you need to compete against temporary foreign workers that have fewer rights and we can pay less as you're trying to establish yourself, right? So we need to make these adjustments. But he said, the minister announced that Canada would reinstate a 10% cap on the proportion of low-wage temporary foreign workers a company could employ, down from 20%, though there would be exceptions for food, healthcare, and construction industries. All of the changes will go into effect September 26th, so that's a pretty quick turnaround. The changes largely reversed the 2022 overhaul of the temporary foreign worker program that made it easier for businesses struggling with pandemic worsened staff shortages to hire low-wage workers from abroad. This included lifting the ban on hiring low-wage workers in areas with high unemployment and increasing the percentage of companies' workforce could be made up of low-wage temporary foreign workers from 10 to 20% and 30% for some industries. Boissonneau ended the 30% cap earlier this year. As the pandemic has waned, Canada's non-permanent resident population has exploded, rising from 1.3 million in 2021 to 2.8 million in the second quarter of 2024, according to data from Statistics Canada. Over that same span, the number of people on work permits, which includes temporary foreign workers, has soared to 1.3 million. Much of the growth in the foreign workers has come from the low-wage sector, which includes sectors such as food service, construction, and hospitals. Low-wage temporary foreign workers jumped from just under 16,000 in 2016 to over 83,000 last year, CBC News reports, citing federal data. So, there you go. According to housing expert Mike Moffett, data shows that the number of lower wage professionals has surged in recent years, while the youth employment rate has fallen to record lows. In July, the employment rate for 15 to 19-year-olds came out to 46.9%, the second lowest on record, only slightly ahead of pandemic March 2020. And the overall unemployment rate has crept up in recent years from 4.8% to 6.4% in the last month. Part of that has to do with the fact that the Bank of Canada was deliberately trying to cool the economy to get inflation under control. So while everybody might be looking at this and go, oh my God, the unemployment rate went up 1.6% since 2021. Isn't that awful? That's actually a really, really slow progression over the course of 3 years. 1.6% over 3 years. So it's about like a little more than 0.5% every year. And it was a deliberate move.
Yes.
People wanted this. You need to control inflation. You need to, there's cost of living crisis. Okay, then you do understand we need to cool the economy. Oh, the economy's not growing. Well, pick something.
What is it? Pick a lane. Pick a lane.
So this was intentional. This is not a bad thing. Because the goal was to do that without provoking a recession, which we did. Like this, according to the OECD, the closest that we got to a quarter of negative growth was 2 quarters ago, the last quarter of 2023, where we had GDP growth of 0.2%, which we reported on the show grew to 0.6% in the first quarter of this year. And the Bank of Canada has estimated, but not yet confirmed, at 1.5% for the second quarter of this year. All right. And the OECD, I think, and the IMF are projecting that next year for 2025 will be one of the fastest growing economies in the G7. So all the conservative complaints like the sky is falling, it's like the macroeconomic situation is very good. But the word that I keep on hearing that's probably more accurate is that even though we are not in a recession, a lot of people are facing a me-cession. So that is a very real impact, and that's what people vote on, of course.
Indeed.
All right, Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
We do indeed. I have 2 little tidbits of information for you. Well, actually, one tidbit of information and then something that we'll end on a lighthearted note. Here's some positive news, though, in the entertainment world. For those of you who are unaware, I will share this with you right now on the screen, and I'll read it out loud. This is from the official Twitter account of Oasis. The guns have fallen silent. The stars have aligned. The great wait is over. Come see. It will not be televised. Liam and Noel Gallagher. This is cute. But the Gallagher brothers are, they've put down put aside their differences.
Yes.
They're no longer fighting and arguing, and they are going to reunite. So this is going to be interesting.
They've announced tour dates.
Yeah.
They've announced dates. Now, the ones announced I believe, are strictly all in the UK. I'm not even sure if it's broader Europe. But with plans for broader touring. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. You know what? And we were talking. It's funny that this comes out there because we were talking about it the other day when we were all having a barbecue at Mademoiselle Fox's porch, talking about I could not stand Oasis when they came out. I just couldn't.
They grew on you, right?
I thought they were whiny and and now it's like every time Don't Look Back in Anger or Wonderwall, I was like, yeah, baby. The Brit.
Exactly.
I do not understand how, like, their biggest songs, which I could not stand every time they came on the radio. Oh God, not them again. And I would flip the channel. How do I know the words to these songs by heart, despite the fact that I did not like them then? And how is it that I like them now? I do not know what
I
happened.
don't know, man. I don't know. I've always liked him.
All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. And according to the boss, Alistair McBair here, apparently we did a really good job, Mr. Grizzly. He's giving us a pause up.
Cool.
Woo! All right. Oh, Mr. Alistair McBair, you forgot to wear the bottoms for your house coat there. So you need to.
Is he like Winnie the Pooh?
He's a bit like Winnie the Pooh. Like, we share a lot.
Yeah.
From certain camera angles. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. I remember that it was Cyndi Lauper. I got that line from Cyndi Lauper. She was doing a tour in Ottawa like this, and it was she was pregnant with her child Declan, very pregnant, and she had strawberry pink hair and a lime green dress, and you could see the bulge. And she's sitting on a stool and about bringing out the guitar to sing. Says, and she goes, "I'm sorry, I have to pull down the dress like this because from where you sit, the audience, you and I, we share a lot." She's great to see. Listen, if that woman had not become a singer, she had a career as a stand-up comic. Every time in her show, she stops like for about 10 or 15 minutes at some point to just chat with the audience and has everybody in stitches the entire time. So she's great to see. And by the way, she's on her. She will have a farewell tour coming this summer. I think she says it's her farewell. I think she's in her 70s now.
Yeah, she must be.
Yeah. So, because she became famous in her 30s, I believe. She was.
And that was the early 80s too.
Yeah.
Girls Just Want to Have Fun was 83, if memory serves.
Yep, 83.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's 41 years ago.
I know. And she's just amazing. Such a prolific career. She's one of my favorites, if not my favorite singer. And by the way, Mr. Grizzly was not aware of it. If you have not heard her album At Last.
Oh yeah, we played it the other night. I was like, that did not sound like Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah. That's the album that everybody had. She done that album second, like She's So Unusual one, and then At Last second. And it's like, because she's famous for the squeaky thing. And oh my God, that woman can sing.
Yeah, it's not the squeaky thing.
No, she can sing.
Yeah, she augmented her voice for it, and really, yeah, it was quite something actually.
Yeah,
I'd not heard that before.
Yeah, she can belt.
Oh, yeah.
And she's got incredible control. So yes, if you would like to support us, tell your peeps and poops all about us. We love it when you do. And if you would like to make sure you don't miss an episode, you don't have to. Thanks to the Ray Girl. Absolutely. Because she sponsors us. She sponsors our pod page. That QR code that just appeared under my chin right there will bring you there if you scan it. And if you are listening, podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. You don't even have to go searching for it. We deliver. We're like Domino's.
Without the racism.
Yes. Well played, sir. And if you would like to support us in other ways, then you need to meet like Kit Elaine, who shows up right on time on my screen with the chat here, who says, "Have a beyond awesome day, everyone. And remember to smash the button before you leave. And to smash the button, will you surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver YouTube site. And there we have like, share, and subscribe. So if you smash all our buttons, well, one, it gets us some happy. And we like. Absolutely. And, well, you do a good thing to support democracy and information and a little bit of media literacy. Now,
and for those watching on some other platforms, because we're on a bunch of platforms, you can join the Damn Fam chat, which is, it's always lively, sometimes controversial, but always lively, and it's a good group of people. So if you're watching us on a different platform, you want to surf on over, I've put the address across the bottom of the screen, and I will put the QR code, because if it's easier for you to scan, that'll take you directly to our YouTube channel. If you scan the QR code, or if you see me on the street wearing this.
Woo! Scan him, baby. Scan them
That'll
hard.
take you directly to our YouTube channel where you can join in the Damn Fam chat. And just a fine group of people who will enlighten you because they enlighten us on the daily, literally.
Yep.
I learn stuff all the time from just the kids and cubs who are part of the big Damn Fam, who are always so kind and send us so much information that we help. You know, we're not journalists, we're not reporters, we're curators. We curate the information, and yes, we do give you our opinion. That's the beauty of having freedom of expression and a platform to do it on.
Ooh, there you go.
Like
And
that.
yes, and while we're talking about Damn Fam, sending a lot of love and comfort and strength and inner peace and all the stuff to Kit Chen.
Oh,
And yes, both her and her husband both lost their fathers
oh shit.
on the same day.
I'm so sorry, Jen. I had no idea.
That's a lot.
That's heavy. That's a heavy burden of grief.
Yeah.
Damn. I am
yeah.
so sorry.
So we are taking you in our arms and holding you really, really, really tight and close, and stay in them for as long as you need.
Hmm.
All right. This that's not an easy situation. That's a lot of loss at one time.
That's yeah.
So yeah, we've got you. Yeah, it was a double whammy. I can imagine. So yeah, we've got you, my friend. If
God damn.
ever you need you need an ear or a shoulder offline, we're here for you. Okay, so just reach out if you need us.
I'll try and do an ASMR tonight if schedule permits and I'm feeling up to it. Last night, like I said, I was just migraine all day and it destroyed me. But I'll try and do something tonight if I can, or maybe just release a couple of tidbits in the afternoon if the construction is quiet.
Yeah, indeed. All right. So let's see. We did all the surfing stuff. Oh, yes. If you would like to support us in other ways, please. Doing this show costs some money, and if you can help us with that, that always is very much appreciated. The QR code that's up by Mr. Grizzly's head will bring you to our tip jar, otherwise known as our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. If you have a little bit of change jingling in your pocket and it's weighing you down, well, we like to help. Let us lighten your load. Everything is appreciated. Thank you very much. If you're not able to contribute financially, hey, don't worry about it. Because the gift of your attention, the gift of your participation are the ones we cherish the most. And we love to hear from you. True North Eager Beaver at gmail.com is where you can reach us, or you can leave us something on our Twitter feed at True Eager, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver, or leave a comment on our YouTube page if you're watching there. We read everything, and we thank you so much for everything that you do to help make the show better because, like I said, it's a community thing. So it's not just our show, but yours too. And when you give us something that we could use, we are definitely more than willing and happy to bring it forward to share with the rest of the Damn Fam. All right, because democracy is something that you do. Federal by-elections coming up September 16th. I think that might be the same day that House is sitting again, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, September 16th, Elmwood Transcona in Manitoba, La Salle-Ville-Mare and Verdun in the Montreal region. So you're going to have some federal by-elections going down there. We have the Ward 15 by-election in Toronto. I'm not sure if Kit Dan is there with us, but if you'll remind us of the date of that, we'll be happy to mention it on air. And if you happen to be living in the beautiful provinces of British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick, there will be by-elections, provincial elections in October. Hopefully, we need to keep British Columbia in NDP hands, even though the race seems to be getting much tighter, at least where the polling is concerned. And David Eby seems to have issues popping up left, right, and center all of a sudden that are making it a little bumpier for him to navigate. And then in New Brunswick, where we absolutely need to reverse Blaine Higgs there because he too thinks that his path to victory goes through bashing kids. And if you've been paying attention in the news, apparently they've been circulating a flyer that's been going door to door in New Brunswick that is a particularly transphobic.
Yes, I've heard about this.
Green Party leader David Kuhn in New Brunswick had a lot of few choice words to say about that. Yes, Kit Tom, Ward 15, like Daniel, Ward 15, that Ward 15, yes. Dan says early voting is October 26th and 27th for Ward 15. So you still have some time to go. Make sure that you plan your vote because friends don't allow friends to do democracy alone.
That's correct.
It's a group thing. And let's see what else have we got. So yes, and then in Saskatchewan, it looks like the polls are tightening between the NDP and the Saskatchewan Party, and that party's been in power for a long time. So I mean, if we're getting tired of Trudeau federally being there a long time, why not the same provincially for Saskatchewan?
Yeah.
Residents of Saskatchewan, you deserve better than Mo. Just saying.
Goodness, yes.
Make a change. All right. It could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom for us? Please say you do.
I do, but at first I wanted to share this image with you. It's for those of you who are unaware. We do now have, you can join the channel as a member, and you are able to receive, and we're going to start to produce some content exclusive to members. We've got one thing up. There will be more coming. It's just been
Grizzly growl.
a busy few days. So yeah, I'll have the grizzly growl, and we're going to have the beaver bite.
Beaver
Beaver
tails.
Beaver tails.
Beaver
Sorry.
tails.
Beaver tails. So you'll have grizzly growls and beaver tails, and we will start to release that content that is exclusive to members, because if you're paying for extra stuff, we should give you extra stuff, is how I see it. I mean, isn't that simple? You know?
Got your extra stuff right here. Right there. There. Shake them.
Okay.
All right. I guess that's not the words of wisdom, though.
No, that was not the words of wisdom. That was just something I wanted to let everybody know about, so that there's always, other ways that we can generate revenue, because I'm out of a job and this stuff is expensive, and yeah. But words of wisdom today, if you're having a tough one, as we sometimes often do, I want to remind you that at one point in time, this great nation of ours had a political party that was, well, just watch this.
In this election, you've heard a lot about yogic flying and the experience of bubbling bliss. That's because 7,000 yogic flyers can create a perfect government with the ability to satisfy everyone. All of our national problems are basically caused by stress. And the best antidote is transcendental meditation and 7,000 yogic flyers, which can eliminate stress in the whole country, create an integrated national consciousness, and prevent problems. For a perfect government, vote the Natural Law Party.
I've got an interesting story about that one, Mr. Grizzly.
Oh?
I've cast one protest vote in my entire life.
And it was against the Natural Law Party?
It was for the Natural Law Party. I was sitting there. I couldn't figure out. I didn't like any of my choices. And I said, you know what? If all it takes is hiring 40,000 Canadians, creating jobs, to train them to be yogic flyers, and for everybody entering Parliament through the east door rather than the front door, that if it doesn't work, it doesn't cost a lot, and we created 40,000 jobs. You got my vote. That was my logic.
Wow.
I could do worse.
I suppose you could. Yes, the Ryan Masters Party.
And yoga, it's like good health, meditate, like you could do worse. But yes,
what was their economic policy, though? Did they have one? No.
No, it was just that if you did all of that, then the overall mood and everything would be better, and everybody would be more conducive to thinking clearly and making better decisions in the best interest of everyone.
I can't argue with that as being unsound logic, but that's not really going to help.
Won't be enough.
No, it's not nearly enough.
But nothing bad can happen. Well, nothing worse.
Nothing worse. Nothing worse.
So yeah, that was the one protest vote. It says, you know what, Doug? You got a great first name. There you go. Hey, and look, that mustache was rocking. I'll just tell you.
Yes. Yeah.
And bonus,
Mustache and mullet.
you get a prime minister who can entertain you with magic tricks. We could do worse. We could do worse.
We've done worse.
Yeah, there was the Conservative Heritage Christian Party back then too, so we could do worse.
That would have been a lot worse.
But yes, my one protest vote was for flying yogis.
Okay. Let's wrap
Always
it up.
vote.
I've got an Easter egg for you right after this.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
Before I send you away for the day and bid you adieu until tomorrow morning, I want to share this audio clip for you from well, let's just listen. I've listened to it already. I don't want to give it much explanation because it is an Easter egg, so have a listen to this.
Then what would you say to the Conservative Party, to Pierre Poilievre, who's been talking, jail not bail, and musing about invoking the notwithstanding clause to bring in even tougher criminal sentencing and longer prison terms? What do you say to politicians making that argument?
Now, this next comment is coming, for those of you listening, from former lead criminal justice and public safety advisor to Prime Minister Stephen Harper.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to make policy not based on research, but rhymes, I would say with jail, we fail. That research shows that. You lock someone up in jail, they become worse, they become a better criminal, and they get out. It's so obviously stupid of a policy idea that it's not tough on crime. It's stupid on crime. So that's the first thing. In terms of using the notwithstanding clause in criminal justice areas, I mean, talk about an admission that your policies are a complete failure. That's a pretty shocking statement to make, to say, yeah, we've got these policies and, we don't, to hell with the courts and constitutionally protected rights. We're just going to ram them through. Do your homework. Like that's the biggest admission of failure I could ever hear about a policy.
So
yeah, we need to get him on the show. I've been thinking about getting him on for a while because he's also has some good takes on addressing the drug crisis as well.
Yes.
He was one of the people near the end of the Harper tenure who actually disassociated himself from. So when we talk about conservatives and we talk about that, they're not all bad and there are good ones and that there are people that get it, that are genuinely progressive conservatives, whatnot. Benjamin Perrin would probably be one because he realized at one point that the Harper ship, he came in, was doing the work and then says, I keep on giving you this advice and you keep on going against it. I mean, dude, what's this about? So,
well, it's because he realized that they just want to dictate. They don't want to actually govern. They just want power.
Yep. Now, before we go, kids, remember, 1 day, 5 hours, 7 minutes to the opening of the Paralympics. So, and day one of a sporting competition on the 29th, we'll have some wheelchair rugby, some goal ball for you, some archery, some badminton, sitting volleyball, wheelchair basketball, track cycling, all the good stuff. So, get ready to support our Canadian athletes. And remember, in our show notes for our descriptions, there's the link to support the Canadian wheelchair basketball team by buying one of those T-shirts that Devin Haru told us about. And we finally get Devin back on our screens.
Oh,
We've missed him.
Yeah. He's been gone for a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yes, he's been traveling all over Europe and discovering a whole bunch of stuff and having a great time during a little bit of time between. But we need our fix of Devin, man. So There you go. And U.S. Open tennis, Canadians on the courts today. So if you're a tennis fan, let's cheer for Canada. All right.
And Bianca Andreescu has found her love for the game again.
Yes.
She's
Yes.
doing well mentally more than anything else. So even if she doesn't win, she's already won in that sense, because she was 19 when she won the U.S. Open. 19.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, crazy, right?
That's young, and a lot happens.
Yes.
It comes at you really fast there. And some people survive and some people don't. Eugenie Bouchard got to the finals of Wimbledon and never really
got back to it. But I mean, she still competes. She still
no, she still competes. No, absolutely. Like this, and and she's doing other things with her life, and she decided that she wanted a more well-rounded life. She's given interviews saying, that was criticized and stuff like this. But you know what? It's like, hey, my life is bigger than.
Yes. Well, and some athletes are like that. You get to the mountaintop and go, it's kind of lonely up here. And I'm noticing that once I got here, it's like, now what? Once you get to the mountaintop, then what?
No.
So let's just enjoy life. And I salute the two of them for it. Good on you, ladies. Well done.
Absolutely. All right. Have a terrific day, everyone. Yes, and Paralympic medalists get paid for the first time. Yes.
It's about time. All right.
About time.
See ya.